Everyone loves the story of starting a business, the freedom, the independence, the idea of being your own boss, and building something that finally belongs to you. Social media makes it look clean and exciting, late nights fueled by passion, early success, and a future full of control and money. But what almost no one talks about are the hidden costs. Not the obvious ones like rent or equipment, but the quiet, accumulating costs that don't show up on a balance sheet. These are the costs that drain energy, strain relationships, distort judgment, and quietly kill more businesses than lack of funding ever does. If you've ever thought about starting a business, or you're already in the middle of one, this is the part of the story most people never warn you about. The cost of time is far greater than you expect. The first hidden cost of starting a business is time, and not in the motivational work, hard sense people usually talk about. It's the total loss of control over your schedule. When you work for someone else, time has boundaries. When you start a business, time becomes elastic and invasive. Work follows you home, into weekends, into holidays, and into your sleep. You don't just work longer hours, you think constantly. Even when you're not actively working, your mind is. Every decision feels urgent. Every problem feels personal. Founders like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have openly spoken about years where work consumed nearly every waking hour. What people don't tell you is that time lost early is rarely recovered later. You miss birthdays, drift away from friends, and delay rest with the promise that it'll slow down after this phase. Often, that phase never really ends. The real cost isn't just hours, it's the erosion of balance and presence in your life. Emotional stress becomes a daily operating expense. Starting a business exposes you to a level of emotional pressure most people are never trained to handle. Every decision feels heavier because the consequences land on you. Cash flow problems aren't abstract, they threaten survival. Customer complaints feel personal. Mistakes replay in your head at night. Success brings relief, not peace, because it raises expectations. Failure brings shame, even when it's normal. Entrepreneurs like Howard Schultz and Sarah Blakely have spoken about the loneliness of leadership, the inability to fully share fear or doubt without feeling like you are weakening confidence. The emotional cost compounds quietly. Anxiety becomes routine. Self-doubt grows louder during slow periods. Burnout creeps in disguised as ambition. Unlike physical expenses, emotional stress doesn't have a clear invoice, but it extracts payment every day in focus, health, and decision quality. Financial costs go far beyond startup capital. Most people budget for startup costs but fail to prepare for financial drag. Revenue rarely arrives on schedule. Expenses almost always arrive early. There are taxes you didn't anticipate, fees you didn't understand, software, subscriptions you can't cancel, and professional services you suddenly need. More dangerous is income instability. Even profitable businesses can feel financially suffocating when cash flow is inconsistent. Many founders quietly drain personal savings, delay their own salary, or take on debt just to keep things moving. This creates constant background stress. You're not just building a business, you're betting your personal financial security on decisions with incomplete information. The hidden cost is not money lost, but financial anxiety gained. It follows you everywhere and influences choices in ways you don't always recognize. Relationships change, and some don't survive. One of the least discussed costs of entrepreneurship is how it reshapes relationships. Friends who don't understand the pressure may interpret absence as neglect. Family members may support you emotionally but grow frustrated with instability. Partners often absorb the uncertainty without choosing it. Conversations change. You become distracted. Even when you're physically present, mentally you're elsewhere. Over time, resentment can grow on both sides. Resentment from loved ones who feel secondary, and resentment from founders who feel misunderstood. Many entrepreneurs, including Bill Gates during Microsoft's early years, have admitted that success came with personal sacrifices they didn't fully anticipate. The cost isn't just strained relationships, it's the realization that ambition often demands trade-offs that no one explicitly agrees to, but everyone feels. Decision fatigue slowly damages judgment. In a job, many decisions are made for you. In a business, nearly everything is your call. Pricing, hiring, firing, marketing, strategy, partnerships, each decision consumes mental energy. Over time, this constant decision-making creates fatigue that affects judgment. You become reactive instead of thoughtful. You delay choices not because you're lazy, but because your mental reserves are depleted. Studies on leadership show that decision fatigue increases risk-taking, avoidance, and inconsistency. Entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs famously reduced trivial decisions to preserve focus. The hidden cost here is cognitive. When your mind is overloaded, even smart people make poor choices. This doesn't happen suddenly. It happens slowly, invisibly, until one bad decision causes disproportionate damage. Identity becomes tied to the business. When you start a business, it's not just something you do, becomes something you are. Success feels like validation. Failure feels like a personal verdict. This identity fusion is dangerous. It makes setbacks harder to recover from and success harder to enjoy. You stop separating self-worth from performance. Entrepreneurs like Mark Cuban have warned about this trap, noting how easily founders confuse business outcomes with personal value. When identity and business merge, rest feels like weakness, delegation feels like loss of control, and stepping away feels like failure. The hidden cost is psychological rigidity. You lose flexibility in how you see yourself, making both growth and recovery harder. Opportunity cost is always running in the background. Every path chosen excludes others. When you commit to a business, you give up alternative careers, stable income, geographic flexibility, and sometimes education or personal growth opportunities. This opportunity cost is invisible because you never experienced the life you didn't choose, but it still exists. During difficult periods, your mind revisits those alternatives. What if I had stayed? What if I had chosen differently? This mental comparison can drain motivation and clarity. Even successful entrepreneurs experience this quietly. The cost isn't regret, it's constant comparison. Learning to accept opportunity cost is essential, but rarely discussed honestly. Success creates new pressure, not relief. One of the biggest myths about entrepreneurship is that success reduces stress. In reality, it often transforms it. As a business grows, stakes increase. More employees depend on you. More money is on the line. More eyes are watching. Mistakes become more expensive. Growth demands structure, systems, and leadership skills many founders never wanted to develop. Entrepreneurs like Reed Hastings of Netflix have spoken about how scaling a company requires letting go of control, something that feels unnatural to many founders. The hidden cost of success is responsibility. The better things get, the harder it becomes to walk away, slow down, or fail safely. Your health pays the price. Before you notice, one of the most dangerous hidden costs of starting a business is the slow decline of physical and mental health. It doesn't usually happen in dramatic ways. It starts with skipped meals, irregular sleep, constant screen time, and stress that never fully shuts off. Founders often convince themselves that this is temporary, a necessary sacrifice for future freedom. But months turn into years. Chronic stress raises cortisol levels, weakens the immune system, and affects memory and focus. Headaches, back pain, digestive issues, and exhaustion become normal. Mental health suffers too, anxiety becomes baseline, and rest feels undeserved. Entrepreneurs like Jack Dorsey and Arianna Huffington have spoken openly about burnout and health collapses that force them to rethink how they work. The hidden cost is that health debt compounds just like financial debt, but with fewer chances to refinance. When your health declines, decision-making worsens, creativity drops, and recovery takes far longer than expected. Failure is public, and recovery is private. When a business struggles or fails, the experience is rarely quiet. Friends ask questions. Family worries. People speculate. In some cases, employees lose jobs and customers are disappointed. Even if no one says anything directly, founders feel exposed. Social pressure adds another layer of stress, especially in cultures that romanticize success but stigmatize failure. Yet, recovery happens alone. There's no formal process for rebuilding confidence, repairing self-trust, or explaining the experience to others. Entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, after being pushed out of Apple, described the period as deeply painful, but also clarifying. The hidden cost isn't failure itself, it's carrying the emotional weight of it without a roadmap. Learning to fail publicly and rebuild privately is one of the hardest and least discussed skills in entrepreneurship. Starting a business is not just a financial decision, it's a life decision. The hidden costs aren't meant to scare you, but to prepare you. Time, emotional strain, financial uncertainty, strained relationships, mental fatigue, identity shift, opportunity costs, and the pressure of success are all part of the real price of entrepreneurship. None of these costs mean starting a business is a mistake, but pretending they don't exist is. The people who survive and succeed aren't the ones who avoid these costs, they're the ones who see them clearly, manage them honestly, and decide that the trade-offs are still worth it. Because in the end, the most expensive mistake isn't starting a business, it's starting one without understanding what it will truly demand from you.